New signs of legal trouble for Rudy Giuliani because even as Trump's DOJ admits it's taking Rudy's dirt on Biden, new reports suggest the investigation into Rudy himself is now heating up, with the Washington Post reporting that federal prosecutors here in New York have been contacting witnesses and looking for additional documents in the Rudy probe since the impeachment trial began wrapping up, including interviewing one witness just last week. That story came as CNN reports that prosecutors are considering new charges against Giuliani's associate, Lev Parnas, related to a company that paid Rudy $500,000, not sure for what exactly, all of it setting up a strange dynamic. Trump's DOJ looking into Rudy's activities, even though, as his attorney general confirmed last week, the DOJ is also evaluating tips that Rudy is submitting about the Bidens.
The DOJ has the obligation to have an open door to anybody who wishes to provide us information that they think is relevant. We had established an intake process in the field so that any information coming in about Ukraine could be carefully scrutinized by the department. So that is true for all information that comes to the department relating to the Ukraine, including anything Mr. Giuliani might provide.
With me now, former U.S. Attorney Carol Lemon. Back with us is former federal prosecutor John Flannery, who used to work with Rudy Giuliani. Carol, let me begin with you. Do you believe there is new life to the investigation into Rudy? And as that soundbite just suggested there, you had the Attorney General saying, hey, we're willing to take information from Rudy Giuliani, though he does not comment on the fact that he is also part of an investigation.
Yeah, I don't know that it's necessarily new life to the investigation. I think Southern District of New York's U.S. Attorney's Office has been doing what they should do. I think we knew back in October that Rudy Giuliani had gotten $500,000 from the company that Lev Parnas and Igor Fruman ran, ironically enough called Fraud Guarantee. But I think the much more interesting question to me is, why does Bill Barr have to set up this separate intake unit out of the district, the Western District of Pennsylvania in Pittsburgh? Because although there are times when attorney generals will say, we're going to use a U.S. Attorney's Office to look into something because we don't want people thinking there's a conflict of interest here at Main Justice. You know, John Durham in Connecticut is looking into a lot of the FBI's activities, for example. Here you already have a district, the Southern District of New York, that is really looking into these activities in Ukraine, and Parnas and Furman and Giuliani. And why move part of this intake information to Pittsburgh? That's a little troubling to me, and I think a question for Bill Barr would be, why don't you have faith in the Southern District of New York to take on both investigations?
John, the Washington Post suggesting that prosecutors took new steps as the impeachment probe was winding down. Do you think, or would they have scaled things back during the trial at all?
I don't know why they've been comatose based on the public reports this period of time. Those of us who do trial work wonder why, when Rudy waved his hand and said, in this telephone, I have everything that anybody could ever want to know about this. And he came back on or about, I think, December the 8th, and there was a New York Magazine article describing him coming back, and he had several phones with him. Why aren't those phones being investigated? Why haven't they been seized with a search warrant or whatever was necessary? The problem here is the Justice Department has an identity crisis. On the one hand, in a battleground state, they set up a transfer of the information that perhaps is the investigation they couldn't get Zelensky to do in Ukraine, and they're going to do it here in Pittsburgh. And at the same time, the fellow that they're taking this information, who is not just like anybody off the street, is supposedly under investigation in the Southern District of New York, where Rudy Giuliani's partner is the current U.S. attorney. And this guy is the lawyer for the president. We have to wonder if Igor and Lev are not going to be the ones that end up in the catbird seat when additional charges are brought, and what will happen with Rudy. And I don't know that we have any protection against the overweening ambition of the president and Barr to secure re-election. So we have to watch and see. Now, I'm a veteran of the Southern District of New York, called the Sovereign District of New York, with a history of independence. And I don't think we know enough to know whether or not they're under the thumb of Barr, and that this division isn't a calculation to credit Giuliani for now disclosing what terrible things happened with the Bidens and offsetting whatever prosecution or investigation there might be in New York.
Let me, Carol, play for you what Trump had to say about Giuliani just last week.
Was it strange to send Rudy Giuliani to Ukraine, your personal lawyer? Are you sorry you did that?
Not at all. Rudy was a great crime fighter. You know that maybe better than anybody.
Yeah.
And Rudy-
So how could prosecutors use this information that Trump now admits Rudy was working on his behalf?
Yeah, well, this is just another.
Sorry, Carol,
this
go
is
ahead.
just another. Oh, I'm sorry.
Carol, go
this
ahead,
is just
Carol,
another. Yeah, this is just another example of how the president doesn't understand. I mean, he just doesn't understand the lines between what people do in their capacity as government employees engaged in public service and what they do for the president personally. And you can't conflate those two roles, right? People who are in public service have a duty to something above and beyond the president's own personal interests. That is just something that the president does not understand, but that does not excuse his conduct, and where those two conflate, there are going to be problems. So you know, Bill Barr, his responsibility is to look at those two things separately. He has not persuaded people that he's able to do that.
All right, Carol Lamb, John Flannery, thank you both for joining us.
Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that.